Coming up, we've got an inside look at the campus construction plan.
And updates on norovirus outbreak that has struck Trinity over the past few weeks.
All this and more right now on Newswave.
Audio Jungle.
And welcome back to Newswave. Today is Friday, October 4th. I'm Luke McCauley.
And I'm Nellie Clark. Our first story today covers the construction project on the Coates Esplanade. This week, Newswave reporter Joey Mattingly spoke with students and campus officials about the project.
So my name is Andrew Wells and I serve as the Vice President for Student Affairs, and I'm here to talk a bit about the Esplanade project.
Hello, my name is Joey Mattingly and I will be investigating into the Coates Esplanade construction.
It's definitely a bit annoying for me in particular. I chose Murchison as my dorm because of how close it is to Upper Campus, and this construction here kind of makes me have to walk around, which was one of the pulls for me to go to that dorm.
But I do think it's dumb, and I think that it infringes on my ability to get to class on time.
It adds time to any commute from Upper to Lower Campus to have to go around it.
After speaking to students, I went to Andrew Wells to get more information.
By widening the footprint of the Esplanade, moving it a little bit south, and flattening it, we're able to have fire lane access that gets us up to the building. We're also able to shrink the size of the large grass inlaid area that used to be here. That's going to be shrunk down to a smaller footprint, which means there will be more usable space for programs like the Student Involvement Fair. And then we're adding some seating here on some raised limestone seating that will reflect the design elements that you see on the other areas of the northern part of campus.
As construction continues to develop into the semester, concern for its completion grows.
It seems like it'll be here for a while, so that is definitely a disappointment and like a shock when I came to campus.
Got a slightly delayed start just because of permitting and summer schedules, but all told, this should be done by January.
In fact, despite student concern, progress is moving swiftly and efficiently.
We're already through phase one. So phase one, the idea is that we're phasing this project so it kind of marches east to west. So with phase one, we started with the paving of the new cement pavers here so that as of today, it's reopened.
I'm glad Cardio Hill is open because it's so much of a faster way.
Once phase two is done, the fence will be moved slightly to the west, and this pathway around Coates will be reopened.
While the Murchison elevator will remain open throughout this whole process, Andrew Wells spoke on how it might look different.
When we transition from phase two to phase three in mid-November, that detour is going to flip from going east to west to going west to east. And so when we get to the end of this project in January, we will have it a broader footprint, more room for programming. It'll be better lit at night, and so it'll be comfortable and more safe for students who are just looking for a place to sit down or hang out or passing through.
Unfortunately, Andrew Wells was not able to give us any progress over the new Welcome Center's construction, as he does not oversee the process.
I'm so grateful for the interest from TigerTV, and I'm looking forward to seeing students enjoying the new space.
In response to a recent outbreak of norovirus at Trinity, officials have urged students to take precautions. On September 9th, an email from Andrew Wells, Vice President of Student Affairs, and Marcy Youngdahl, Director of Integrated Counseling, Health, and Wellness Services, alerted students of the situation. Although an investigation led by University Health Services and the local health officials found no source for the virus's outbreak, around 45 cases have been reported. Despite rumors of the source of the outbreak remains unknown, but officials stress that not all students have eaten at Mabee Dining Hall. Rico Contreras, a senior, described his experience with norovirus as intense but short, lasting about 12 hours. While the number of new cases is declining, students are advised to practice good hygiene, including hand washing and avoiding sharing food and drinks. Health services suggest students to stay hydrated and avoid public places to prevent transmission. Stay healthy and safe, Trinity.
As part of Trinity University's Distinguished Lecture Series, political strategist Michael Steele and Paul Bagala will lecture in Laurie Auditorium on Thursday, October 10th at 7:30 p.m. The topic is the future of American political leadership, navigating partisanship and promoting unity. Michael Steele was the former chairman of the Republican National Committee and the first African American elected to statewide office in Maryland. He has appeared on Meet the Press and Real Time with Bill Meir. Paul Bagala is a CNN commentator and a former strategist and counselor for President Bill Clinton. He has written 6 books, several of which have become New York Times bestsellers, and has won an Emmy and a Peabody Award. This event is free and open to the public, but registration is required.
Still up ahead, candidates have begun entering the upcoming San Antonio mayoral race and how one former city councilor plans to make a political comeback.
And an exclusive interview on National Voter Education Week here at Trinity, and how you can engage in the effort to get out the vote.
Stick around, we'll be right back after the break.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Newswave. American snout butterflies are back to swarming the skies in South Texas as we begin the fall. The recent influx of butterflies comes from a massive bloom of their main food source, hackberry bushes. According to entomologist Molly Keck, quote, "When we have these pretty intense rains, hackberries start to bud out so there's enough food for the babies," end quote. When the caterpillars hatch, they feast on the hackberry bushes, and they fully mature after about 2 weeks. Despite causing quite a mess on drivers' windshields, these beautiful insects pose no harm to the local flora and fauna, but they will be gone before we know it. They only live for a few weeks, so make sure you enjoy them while they're still flying around. In more campus news, Newswave reporter James Albert Wortman interviewed the head of Trinity Voter Engagement Task Force about events on campus during National Voter Education Week.
Hi, I'm James Oberwortman with Newswave, and I'm here with Jamie Thompson, the head of the Trinity Voter Engagement Task Force, and we're here to talk about National Voter Education Week next week. So why don't you tell us a bit about what the events are all about?
Next week's events are all about education, information, and resources so that our community is ready and able to make a plan to vote, to research their ballot, to get to the polls, right? So actually cast their ballot. From things like requesting a mail-in ballot to making their plan to vote, and then kind of celebrating at the end of the week with a voter care kit. Every day of the week has a different theme, and we're excited to engage with the community.
Can you tell us a bit about some of the themes that are going to be happening next week?
Here in Texas, our voter registration deadline is Monday, October 7th. So for us, our theme and our the urgency around Monday, October 7th is really to make sure that folks are registered to vote if they're eligible and desire to vote. Monday, we'll be helping anyone who isn't yet registered to go ahead and register by that deadline. We'll be tabling on that day in Coates Library lobby in the afternoon, so we can get folks to register to vote there. We'll also be checking registration status. So if you registered to vote weeks ago and you're just not sure what your status is, that's also a good day for you to stop by our table and we can help you check your registration status. The Tuesday theme is about mail-in ballots. So if you are a student who's choosing to register to vote in another county, your home county in the state of Texas, then you can request a mail-in ballot. So we'll have those request forms available at the tabling on Tuesday, as well as stamps. So no need to go out and buy a stamp or be bogged down by that detail. We've got you covered in terms of that. That will ensure that your ballot reaches you so that you can actually cast your ballot, your absentee ballot. On Wednesday, we're hosting a really fun event called Don't Wing It, Make a Plan to Vote. And our Democracy Fellows will be down in Maybe Dining Hall on Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. There'll be wings, a wing bar, if you will, and a plan to vote worksheet. So we've got you covered step by step in terms of what you need to be thinking about to make a plan to vote. On Thursday, we're excited to partner with Wellness Services. So on Thursday, we're hosting a mental health and politics resource fair. Next week also happens to be Mental Health Awareness Week. And so with Wellness Services, we'll be looking at the intersection between mental health and politics. So what ends up on your ballot, the politicians and the elected folks that you're voting for, how that shapes our wellness and our well-being and our mental health. The resource fair will be on Thursday from 10 to 1 at Miller Fountain. There'll be resources. The Voter Engagement Task Force will have swag there, and we're excited to partner with them. We'll conclude and wrap up the week on Friday, October 11th, with our theme of Level Up Your Voter Engagement. And at that event, we'll be in the Coates Student Center lobby from 11 to 1 p.m. And we'll be giving out paletas and aguas frescas, but also students have the opportunity to create their very own voter care kit. So you can kind of move through an assembly line and pick up some items that might help support you during this election season, which can be stressful for folks. Also happens to be, around midterms, so there's a lot going on. So from stress balls to some chewing gum and journals, your voter care kit will be a helpful resource for you.
Yeah, and can you just talk for a little bit about the importance of voter education and why y'all are doing this?
Some of you may have heard of the Conversation at Trinity. Academic Affairs and lots of other folks in Student Affairs are working on the Conversation at Trinity. And what that is opportunities for the Trinity community to engage in discourse and dialogue and listening. Part of that work includes voter engagement. So it's civic engagement, it's voter engagement. It is the act of practicing to listen to others so that we can engage in meaningful and respectful dialogue. I think that the voter engagement piece of the Conversation at Trinity is really about recognizing our place in our community. So we are citizens of San Antonio, even for our students, even if that's just for a stopping point, a period of 4 years while you're here. There's a lot happening in our community and our city, and you have the opportunity to create change and be a part of that change in meaningful ways. And I can't think of a more important way than voting to do that, to be a part of, you're an engaged member and citizen of our community. And so particularly for our incoming students, our first year students, for whom this is their first election, you've never cast a vote before, this is a really powerful, incredible opportunity and right that we have in our community to step up and make a difference.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, James. Bye.
A familiar face is running for mayor of San Antonio. Former City Councilman Clayton Perry announced his candidacy for the office last Friday. Perry joins a crowded field of candidates looking to replace current mayor Ron Nierenberg in May of next year. Nierenberg, a Trinity University and TigerTV alumni, is term limited from returning to the mayor's office. Also seeking to replace Nierenberg are current city councilors John Courage, Manny Pelaz, and Adriana Rocha Garcia. The popular free-term councilman Perry will likely still be seated on city council alongside his competitors if not for a drunken hit-and-run incident back in 2022. Perry said he has since shed the habit and is healthier than ever, saying, quote, "People recognize that everybody is human and you make mistakes. I've done a lot of good in my lifetime and I don't want it to end. I want to continue to contribute and do good for this community." End quote.
Controversial Texas resident Elon Musk is set to become the world's first trillionaire. The South African multi-centibillionaire lives in Austin, Texas, and is best known for owning electric car company and social media giant X, formerly known as Twitter. He currently has a net worth of $268 billion. His wealth took a large hit, though, in 2022 and 2023 following his controversial purchase and questionable management of Twitter, which he later renamed X. Since stepping down as CEO of X, his net worth has mostly recovered, although he still remains short of some of his pre-acquisition wealth. Informal Connect Academy, however, still lists Musk as most likely become the first person to break the $1 trillion mark.
Still coming up, a recap of this week's vice presidential debate and how the candidates stacked up on the issues with only a month left until Election Day. Newswave will be right back after this short message.
This year, celebrate Vote Early Day.
And make your voice heard.
Each year, the amount of people voting early grows.
And this fall, over 250 million Americans can vote early.
In person.
By dropping off their ballot.
Or mailing it in. With so many options, you can vote when it's convenient for you.
Election Day is the last day to cast your ballot.
So the question isn't why vote early.
It's why wait. Join the celebration and find out how you can vote early at voteearlyday.org.
Welcome back to Newswave. On Tuesday, Vice President candidates Democrat Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance squared off on national television. For those who missed it, Newswave reporter Max Craig has your recap.
The vice presidential debate on October 1st, 2024 on CBS News was between Senator J.D. Vance, who is running with Donald Trump, and Senator Tim Walz, who is running with Kamala Harris. Going into this debate, I wasn't sure what was going to be talked about, and I assumed that it would just be a shouting match between the two vice presidential candidates. In the end, it was a relatively calm 90-minute contest that covered a range of domestic and foreign policy issues. The candidates spent the most amount of time talking about three issues: immigration, abortion, and the climate. In this report, I'll focus on how the candidates talked about immigration, abortion, and the economy.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies.
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me?
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear.
It's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy.
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies.
There was other issues in this debate, and I didn't show all of the clips for the three that I covered, but I highly recommend that you all go watch the debate for yourselves and see how calm of a debate it was and how they didn't attack each other. My final thoughts about the debate are that even though I already knew who I was voting for before the debate, it shows more how these candidates act as humans. We didn't really get that from the recent presidential debate. As a bonus point, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance seemed to get along pretty well compared to the presidential debate. Also, please, I highly suggest that everyone watching this news report go out and vote for the sake of democracy.
Hurricane Helene has left a trail of devastation across the U.S. Southeast, killing at least 64 people and leaving millions without power. The storm, which made landfall as a Category 4 in Florida, brought 140-mile-per-hour winds and wreaked havoc from Florida through Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. Flooding and landslides created devastating damage, particularly in Tennessee and North Carolina, where part of Asheville was submerged. Genelea England, a Florida resident, said, quote, "I've never seen so many people homeless as what I have right now." Georgia Governor Brian Kemp said the aftermath, quote, "looked like a bomb went off," as he toured damaged areas on Saturday. Meanwhile, in East Tennessee, dozens of patients and staff were airlifted by helicopter from a hospital rooftop. President Joe Biden pledged federal aid, calling the storm's impact, quote, "overwhelming." In North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper declared the flooding as the worst in a century, with over 2 feet of rain reported in some areas. South Carolina hit hard as well, saw 25 deaths, making it the state's deadliest hurricane since Hugo in 1989. Experts blame climate change for the rapid intensification of storms like Lena, which thrive in warming ocean waters. Damage to this storm are estimated to reach up to $110 billion, according to weather forecasting company AccuWeather. Thousands still remain without power, and recovery efforts are underway as utility crews work to reopen roads and restore electricity. However, NOAA warns of an above-average season fueled by record warm ocean temperatures.
Just this Monday, the contract between the International Longshoremen's Association and the United States Maritime Alliance expired. Despite means to work out a new contract between both parties, the union dismissed a last-ditch offer from any operator hours, and any talks over a new contract broke down. Roughly 45,000 port workers, represented by the ILA, walked off the job upon the contract's expiration at midnight, which compromises about half of the nation's ocean shipping, marking the first port workers' strike since 1977. 36 ports along the East and Gulf Coast have been affected, with some of the busiest ports in the U.S. bracing for such a crippling disruption. President Joe Biden has urged port operators to give port workers, quote, a meaningful increase, end quote, in pay. A statement from the White House has been issued calling on the U.S. Maritime Alliance to negotiate a contract that is fair and reflects the substantial contribution of port workers to America's economy. However, if the strike is not put to an end quickly and a new contract is not formalized, economists warn that this will not only shut down ports from Maine to Texas, but it could lead to long-term ramifications such as shortages and higher prices, strangling the U.S. economy.
Former President Jimmy Carter reached a huge milestone earlier this week, becoming the first president in U.S. history to celebrate their 100th birthday. Carter celebrated his birthday on Tuesday at his home in Plains, Georgia. Surrounded by family, Carter watched a World War II airplane fly over from his front lawn. According to the former president's son, Carter is still plugged into the political arena. Chip Carter said in an interview that, quote, I asked him 2 months ago if he was trying to live to be 100, and he said, no, I'm trying to live to vote for Kamala Harris, end quote. Politicians across the country and across the political aisle sent birthday wishes to the former president on Tuesday. Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp even declared October 1st as Jimmy Carter Day to recognize his legacy in the state and around the country. We here at Newswave would like to applaud the former president for reaching this milestone and wish him a very happy belated birthday.
To wrap up, we've got your campus sports update with Newswave's Caleb Reed and international headlines from around the world and even outer space. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love. Love is the majority. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our everyday.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Last weekend was kind of a little bit quiet for sports, but let's jump into what we've got. First off, football had an off week last weekend, getting some much-needed rest after their 16-10 defensive battle against Washington and Lee University to close out September. The team will now start SAA conference play this weekend, traveling up to Danville, Kentucky for a game against the Center Colonels. Trinity won the last matchup against Center here at home, and their next home game will be against another SAA rival, the Sewanee Tigers, on October 12th. Meanwhile, volleyball continued their road trip last weekend with 2 conference games. In a fairly up-and-down season, the team had a welcome weekend by sweeping their matches, winning not just both matches on the weekend, but also dominating the sets, but not dropping a single one. The Tigers swept Schreiner University in Kerrville in their Friday match, and then dominated Concordia University up in Austin on Saturday in straight sets. The women now take a break from the conference and take a 3-game road trip up in New York City, taking on a tournament at NYU. Currently ranked 19th in the nation, the Tigers will take on Smith College, as well as number 22 ranked Ithaca and number 20 ranked NYU, both today and Saturday. Men's soccer kicked off their conference schedule last weekend, earning a dominant 5-0 win against the Shriner Mountaineers. They now have a home and away series this weekend, taking on new SCAC member McMurray University here at home tonight, before squaring up against Concordia University on the road on Sunday. The women didn't play last weekend, taking a well-deserved break, but they do begin their conference schedule tonight following the men's game. They play the same opponents, McMurray tonight and Concordia on Sunday, but will play at 7:30 in both games rather than the men's 5 o'clock start times. That's all from me. I hope that all of you have a fantastic weekend full of watching some Trinity sports, and I will see you all next week. Take care.
Strikes targeted one of the headquarters in Iran-backed group Hezbollah in the suburbs of Lebanon. At least 10 consecutive strikes hit buildings in the suburb of Dahaya, where Hezbollah Central Intelligence Headquarters is located. This strike came just hours after Iran's foreign minister landed in Beirut. The overnight airstrike killed at least 37 people, making the death toll over the last 2 weeks of airstrikes spike to over 2,000. On top of that, more than 1 million people have been driven out of their homes, and many towns and villages near the northern Israeli border have been put under evacuation orders. U.S. citizen Kamal Ahmed Jawad was among those killed in the strikes in Lebanon this week, and the White House stated that they were, quote, deeply saddened by his death and urged Americans not to travel to Lebanon. As the conflict continues between Israel and Hezbollah, we here at Newswave will be sure to keep you updated.
Over the weekend, Austria's far-right Freedom Party took an unprecedented victory in the country's national elections. Sunday's election saw a high voter turnout of nearly 80%, as Austrians were drawn to the polls by issues like migration, economic slowdown, and the war in Ukraine. Official tallies released earlier this week placed the Freedom Party in first with 28.9% of the vote. Party leader Herbert Kickl applauded voters for their, quote, optimism, courage, and trust in delivering a piece of history, end quote. According to NBCNews.com, the Freedom Party was founded in the 1950s by former Nazis and is supportive of Russia's invasion of its Eastern European neighbor Ukraine. This election ousted the incumbent chancellor Karl Nehammer of the Conservative People's Party, whose party only collected 26.3% of the vote. The People's Party has declined to join the Freedom Party in a coalition government, with Chancellor Nehammer asserting it is, quote, impossible to form a government with someone who adores conspiracy theories, end quote.
As of Saturday, a rescue mission being conducted by SpaceX is underway to retrieve astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams stuck at the International Space Station. Williams and Wilmore's Boeing Starliner spacecraft returned to Earth without them on it earlier this month due to some safety concerns, including thruster troubles and helium leaks. A new NASA launch consisting of Nick Hague and Alexander Gorbanov holds 2 extra seats for the stranded astronauts. However, it will not return to Earth until next February. What was supposed to be a week-long trip has turned into more than 8 months by the time that Williams and Wilmore touch down on Earth again. According to officials, this is the absolute earliest they are able to return without disrupting other scheduled missions. Since their stay began on the ISS, Williams has been promoted to commander of the ISS, and 4 other astronauts returned home after a 1-month delay caused by the Starliner dilemma.
Sadly, that's all the time we've got for today.
Newswave will return next Friday, October 11th.
Until then, I'm Luke McCauley.
And I'm Nellie Clark. Have a great weekend.